Okay, so what we have here is a 1707 that sustained liquid damage, and as most of the time they do when they get liquid damage, just because of the way the liquid gets into the machine, it destroys this connector right here. So this connector is for the screen. And what you're looking at here is this big pin that's right here is what carries the backlight voltage to the screen. So the biggest voltage that you're going to have in a MacBook is the backlight voltage, anywhere from 40, 50, 60 volts backlight on depending on what model you're working on. So this is the biggest voltage that you're going to have, and this pin right here goes to, on this machine, luckily it goes to a muxing circuit that changes between the integrated GPU and the discrete GPU. So when you get liquid on this, you see how this is burnt together here. If I take the multimeter and measure this is going to have, maybe a couple hundred ohms of resistance. So when the water was on here, it shorted this straight out. This then starts burning, turns into carbon. Carbon turns into a resistor, or carbon is the same as a resistor. It starts passing electricity right to this. So the 50 volts goes right to the mux and destroys the mux. Now, this one is a better case scenario than the 1706. 1706 does not have a mux. It'll burn the integrated GPU right out of the CPU. So this one, we're going to take the heatsink off, and the mux is right between everything. We could just change just the mux and save this machine. Let's take the heatsink off. So you can just look at that burnt connector while I take the heatsink off.
If you don't get 52 volts to the CPU, then how do you overclock it properly?
You overclock the CPU with 52 volts?
But how do you do it if you don't send 52 volts?
Don't you supposed to send like 1.7 volts instead of 1.6 volts or something like that? Yeah, isn't overclocking on the boards that are meant to be overclocked, aren't they really accurate with stuff like that? You're sending like a couple tenths of a volt more to the CPU? I've never overclocked anything. I used to build all kinds of crazy computers way back when. But since then, I just want something that works. I don't care about all this crazy shit anymore. I just want it that works. So let me take this, let's take this string cable off of here, because I don't want to accidentally turn it back on with that. Because this right here, let's, I wish I had Paul Daniels' awesome multimeter software to actually show you that if I were to ohm check from this to this, I have 112 ohms of resistance. So the plastic has turned into a resistor, and now it's 112 ohms of resistance. We got our heatsink off, turn the board around. Here's my mux. So this chip here is responsible for switching from the integrated graphics in the CPU to the dedicated graphics in the AMD GPU. That just switches the outputs. So this is what takes the hit of backlight voltage, and it dies. So I'll just put the proper amount of flux on there.
That is not enough. This is not going to work.
And you got to be careful when you're working on this, because you don't want your hot air going over here on your GPU. You don't want your hot air going over there on your CPU. You want to just try to stay right between everything and just blow on down. And it whistles a lot because of these holes for the heatsink. This area of the board is very heat sinky. A lot of ground planes and a lot of heat dissipation right here. So it takes a lot. Once it's moving, you gotta wait for it to move. Once you see it moving, then you can lift up on it. If you don't see it moving, you might rip a pad. So now we have it off. We take some leaded solder. Beep you. Take some leaded solder and suck up all that non-leaded solder out of there. And take my roll of gesso. I'm just gonna clean up all those pads, make them nice and flat. When you're wicking, you don't want to feel the pads. You just want the weight of the iron on everything. You don't ever push down on anything.
Good wig available on store.rossmangroup.com. That's store.rossmangroup.com if you need to buy any good wig. Buy Jessa Jones iPad Rehab approved wig at store.rossmangroup.com. If I could have Gutwig printed with Jess's face on it, should I do it and sell it?
I think so. I think that should be some special edition, like April 1st stuff or something like that. That sounds amazing. I love it. Okay, so that's now prepared for a new one. So now we need to prepare a new one. So unfortunately, right now, the only way to get these is off of a dead board, where they have removed the CPU and GPU, and yeah, the RAM is all missing off of here. The thing's all twisted and sideways, but that's what we're concerned with. We need this thing right here. So we'll do the same thing here. Take it off, put the right amount of flux on it.
That is not enough flux. That is not enough flux, Paul. Where's the flux?
See how there's no flux running away practically? There's just this little dot. So what's the point if flux is all flowing over here? It's not on your work area. The flux that I put is staying under the work area. That's all you need. So now we got our nice little chip here. Now we have to reball them. The first thing we do is pretty much the same thing that we did for the board. Only I'm going to be using a micro pencil to add leaded solder to this, because this guy does not take a lot of heat. It does not need a lot of heat to clean up. See, my flux is still working. I still don't need to add any flux. Now that everything looks about the same, I am not going to gesso off the chip. That's where I draw the line on it. I'm not gonna clean off the chip with it. I am gonna take a Q-tip with some alcohol, clean the chip off real good with this. Now I need to get my two nicest set of tweezers. I'm going to clean them off real good. So we're going to be dealing with 0.3 millimeter lead balls. And they are amazing for not listening to gravity. So now I get the stencil. So we've been having a hard time finding stencils for some of this stuff. And in an old kit, I found this one stencil, and I protect it dearly here, because it's the only stencil that seems to be perfect for everything. This is for some kind of old memory chip. I've searched for this stupid thing forever. I cannot find this stupid stencil. We've found references to it. We found all kinds of stuff about it, but I can't find this thing anymore. And this thing is just the perfect stencil for practically everything on these new MacBooks. Look at that. Look at how perfect that is. Like, yeah, okay, fine. It has empty holes, but that's fine. We're just going to use balls then. But before I do that, I have to add a little bit of flux to my chip. Oop. And then I'm going to spread the flux evenly. Nice thin layer.
Now I know where that stencil is. It's mine. I saw where Paul took it from, even though he thinks I didn't.
I have to clean the rubber mat real well because I'm going to be taping the stencil down to the mat. So let's place this guy pretty much center. You don't have to worry about trying to get it perfect right there because I'm just going to mess it up real bad when I put the first piece of tape on. Just take some Captain tape, and I'm going to mask off the holes that I don't need. Some of them on the edges. Just makes it easier that you don't accidentally drop a ball in them and have to try to pull it out. I don't want to put a ball in an empty hole or something where it's not going to melt too, because it could go popping out and combine with something else and just waste time. So now that's pretty much where it's going to be, so let me get the chip centered. Add 2 more pieces of tape.
Paul thinks that he's hid the stencil, and that I don't know where it is because I'm not in the room. What he doesn't know is that I was watching the security camera as he was locating the stencil, meaning that I know exactly where that stencil is. And now I can find it and take it from him. And he'll never know.
Let me take our tiny jar of balls. The old jar of balls, can't even read it anymore. These have been pretty good. I bought them off of eBay. They were one of the kits with a lot of different sizes, so I got like practically every size of balls. They've been lasting a good long time. So let's see, I need my preview up so I can see what you're seeing here. So I dumped out a little pile here. So now I got 2 sets of tweezers. I'm just going to pick them up one by one or a couple by one and place them in the hole. I'm not holding my tweezers right. I seem to have too much coffee today. I actually stopped drinking coffee in the morning. Today I had a coffee because I stopped at a donut shop because it's National Donut Day. I hope everybody stopped at your local Dunkin' Donuts or Krispy Kreme and got a free donut. See what I said about them defying gravity? Looks like I might be short a couple from what I dumped out. I need 3 more. Oh no. See if I get that one out. Okay. I got a wider pair of tweezers so I can hold the stencil down around it. And melt these on. Okay. So that looks good. Let's get our board back on the table. Okay, so I did not take note of the orientation. So I need to open up the schematic here. Wow, my computer's running kind of slow. Too many things open. Okay. Huh, I happened to place it down in the right orientation. You press it down, add some flux, press it down, kind of wiggle it around, and you'll feel when it catches into the little cups that the pads are in. And what I like to do, hold it down right there, heat it up. Now you got to be careful with this. You got to have a feel for when it's actually going to melt. Because I'm pushing down on it right now. And then I'm going to take the heat away. I'm going to let go. Ooh, I'm stuck to the board. And now, without the tweezers anywhere near it, I should be able to just heat this right down on the board. All my excess flux is cleaned off. Now ready to put it back together and test it. So let me clean off this thermal paste here. We'll add some new. Just like the right amount of flux, use the right amount of thermal paste. I see far too often people use way too much thermal paste. And that could be a very bad thing. I don't know. I know I've heard it mentioned before online, but it seems to not get to a lot of people. Is that you want as much of this copper touching that die as much as possible. So the key is to use less thermal paste, just enough to fill in any irregularities between the die and the copper. You don't want a layer of thermal paste between the heatsink and the die. You want as much of the copper to touch the die as you can, It's not all going to, because you can't make those two pieces so flat together unless you mill them and machine them. But if you actually have a layer of thermal paste, it turns into an insulator, more so. Oh shit, I can't plug this into this. I cannot plug this into this. So let's see, there should be some kind of mega ohms or something like that between these two pins on a good screen. So 370 ohms. So yeah, that guy's done. So let me see if I have a test screen over here. You guys got a 1707 test screen? Yeah. While I'm waiting for a test screen. Oh. We don't have a test screen. Wink wink. Wink wink, nudge nudge. We do not have a test screen. So now I need a charge port. And I need a charger. Let's see what happens. 5 volts, 20 volts, 0.93 amps, 0 amps. So on, off, on, 0.31 amps. And it should have gone like the new ones do. And I should get some kind of logo by now. Oh, there you go, Apple logo. Before the guy's name comes up, I'm going to disconnect. There we go. I don't know if you saw that. Let's see. No, yeah, you kind of saw that. But yeah, that's it. That's changing a mux. It's one of the most common liquid spill issues on the 1707 MacBook. Unfortunately, if it's either one of the other models, it's just dead CPU. Mostly the 1706. 1708, you get other issues. The 1707, a lot of times it comes through on that screen connector. So he's going to need, possibly I could just do that screen connector. I do not have enough time to do that screen connector today. But yeah, maybe that'll be a stream for tomorrow. I'll do the screen connector on the screen itself. We'll take the screen connector off and ohm check it and see if it can be saved. So instead of changing out a ridiculously expensive screen, we could just do the screen connector. It'll probably wind up being water damaged anyway. Once you get water in the backlight panels, it looks like crap. Yeah, there's a fixed 1707. Hope you learned something. I do that when I'm holding up the board. I'm on a test screen, so I'm holding up the board.
Have your assistant, Camille, or no? Give me something to edit together that's not... Don't give me stuff where they're going to say, did you really fix that? Or
So Lewis wants a better shot of the Apple logo. So we got our test screen here. Plug it in. Now when you're working with a test screen, you have the sleep sensors here. You have the sleep sensors right here. So in the screen itself, you have the magnets that line up with the sleep sensors. So when you're testing like this, you have to hold the board up away from these magnets. Either that or flip it all the way around or something like that if you have enough desk space. But the board can't be here like that. So there's your sleep sensors, the magnets. There's two magnets embedded in the screen right here. So let's put a charge port on this. Plug it in. Make sure it's not thinking it's sleeping. 20 volts. On then off. On one more time, taking about 1 amp. And there's your Apple logo. Fixed.
Done with stop stream, stop recording?
Didn't stop stream yet. See you later, guys.
This video is brought to you by our sponsors at store.rossmangroup.com. Thank you for supporting our sponsors that help keep us in business. On store.rossmangroup.com, you can find chips, supplies, ultrasonics, flux, soldering stations, and more. With 4.9 stars on Shopper Approved, same-day shipping from New York City, and free continental shipping over $30, you can't lose. We even offer free support, unless you're a Please Bro, live chat, and are adding new products every day. If you buy today, we'll throw in a special offer that your order will actually go through properly. What are you waiting for? Go to store.rossmangroup.com to get yourself some authentic Amtech flux. Don't delay. Buy today.